Think about the last time you did something brave. Maybe you said something honest in a room full of people. Maybe you shared work you spent weeks building. Maybe you reached out to someone first, vulnerable, unguarded, genuinely hoping they would meet you there. And then the silence came. Not the dramatic kind, the ordinary kind. The kind where life just kept moving around you and nobody slowed down long enough to register what you had just offered. The conversation shifted, the moment dissolved, and you were left holding the weight of something that mattered to you, alone. That is a specific kind of pain. And what makes it so hard to talk about is that nothing technically went wrong. Nobody was cruel. Nobody rejected you. The world simply continued at its normal speed, and that indifference cut deeper than cruelty ever could. Most people carry this quietly. They shrink a little, they edit themselves a little more the next time. They become slightly more careful about what they reveal and who they reveal it to. And slowly, without ever making a conscious decision, they start building a smaller life, a safer one with fewer moments of genuine exposure. But here is the thing about that smaller life. It does not actually protect you from the feeling. It just postpones it and charges interest, because the discomfort you are trying to avoid is not caused by the world ignoring you. It is caused by a specific, well-documented glitch in the human brain, a glitch that makes you dramatically overestimate how much mental space you occupy in other people's minds, a glitch so deeply wired that even knowing about it does not make it stop. But understanding it, really understanding it, changes everything about how you live. Society has a word for people who are deeply self-conscious. We call them insecure. We say they care too much about what others think. We tell them to stop seeking validation. But that explanation is incomplete, because the truth is not that you care too much. It is that your brain is running a program it was never updated to uninstall. Here is the science. Your brain has a region called the medial prefrontal cortex. This area is responsible for self-referential thinking, the mental process of asking, how do I appear to others? It is always active, always modeling how the outside world perceives you. And here is the glitch. Your brain overestimates how closely other people are watching you. Researchers at Cornell University ran a now famous study. They had participants walk into a room wearing an embarrassing t-shirt. Participants predicted that roughly half the room would notice. The real number? Less than 25%. Your brain doubled the audience that was never even there. This is the spotlight effect. Your brain places an invisible spotlight above your head. It convinces you that every stumble, every awkward pause, every perceived flaw is being witnessed, judged, and remembered. But the spotlight only exists inside your own skull. Ancestors did not live alone. They lived in small tribes of 50 to 150 people. In that world, your reputation was your survival. If the tribe thought you were weak, lazy, or unreliable, you were excluded. And exclusion meant death. So your brain evolved a hyper-vigilant social monitoring system. It became obsessed with tracking how others perceive you. It ran constant simulations. How did that interaction go? Did I say the wrong thing? Are they angry at me? This system was not a flaw. It was a survival tool. But now you live in a world of 8 billion strangers. The person at the coffee shop will never see you again. The colleague who watched you stumble over your words in a meeting will forget it by lunch. The algorithm that shows your post to 300 people moves on to the next piece of content in less than a second. Your ancient social brain did not get the update. It still thinks you are living in a tribe of 80. It still believes every glance is a judgment. Every silence is a verdict. Every missed like is a sign of rejection. The software is running on the wrong hardware. When people feel the weight of the invisible spotlight, they tend to respond in one of two ways. The first type shrinks. They stop posting. They stay quiet in meetings. They rehearse conversations for days before having them. They second-guess every decision because the fear of being judged becomes louder than the desire to act. They live smaller and smaller lives, not because they lack ability, but because the perceived audience is too terrifying. The second type performs. They become experts at managing perception. They curate their image obsessively. They say what they think people want to hear. They shape-shift their personality based on who is in the room. They feel exhausted, but they cannot stop. Because the moment they stop performing, they fear the audience will see who they really are. Both patterns are driven by the same core belief, that other people are watching closely, that they are keeping score, that their opinion of you is both constant and critical, and both patterns are built on a lie. Here is the thing no one tells you, and it will feel like an insult before it feels like freedom. Nobody is thinking about you as much as you think they are, not because you are insignificant, but because they are too busy thinking about themselves. Right now, every person you know is running their own internal monologue, their own fears about being judged, their own spotlight, their own mental reruns of the embarrassing thing they said last Thursday. Harvard psychologist Daniel Gilbert calls this the illusion of transparency. We believe our internal states, our nerves, our shame, our excitement, are far more visible to others than they actually are. The person you are convinced noticed your voice shaking in that presentation was probably rehearsing what they were going to say next. This is not pessimism about human connection. This is the most clarifying insight you can have about social life. Because once you understand that the audience is mostly imaginary, you can stop performing for it. Living under an imaginary spotlight is exhausting. Neuroscientists have found that chronic self-monitoring, the constant act of evaluating how you appear to others, activates your stress response system. Your cortisol rises. Your threat detection network stays on high alert. Your brain treats social exposure the same way it treats physical danger. Over time, this erodes you. You start avoiding situations that might invite judgment. You stop taking creative risks. You overthink emails. You rehearse apologies for things you have not even done yet. You live preemptively, always bracing for a criticism that never arrives. And here is what that costs you. Every hour you spend managing an imaginary audience is an hour you are not spending building something real. Every version of yourself that you perform is energy taken away from the version of yourself that actually wants to exist. Before we go further, I want to pause for those of you who have ADHD or rejection-sensitive dysphoria, a condition where the brain experiences social rejection with disproportionate emotional intensity. For you, the spotlight effect is not just a cognitive bias. It is a nervous system response. The fear of judgment can feel physically unbearable. If this resonates, please know that what you are dealing with is neurological, not a character weakness. The strategies we are about to discuss still apply, but you may also need external support, and that is not a failure. That is just accurate self-knowledge. Step 1, reality testing. The next time you feel the spotlight burning, do this. Ask yourself one question. What evidence do I actually have that this person is thinking about me right now? Not what you fear, not what feels true. What evidence exists? Write it down if you need to. Most of the time, you will find there is none. The spotlight was a projection. This single act of diffusing the assumption, pausing, and demanding evidence begins to retrain your medial prefrontal cortex to stop running the simulation on default. Step 2, audience deflation. Researchers have found that when people vividly imagine what others are actually doing in their own minds, their own worries, their own distractions, their own internal chaos, the spotlight effect reduces significantly. You stop casting yourself as the lead in everyone else's story. Try this practice. When you feel watched or judged, take 30 seconds to genuinely consider what that person's inner world might look like right now. What are they afraid of? What are they distracted by? What conversation are they replaying in their head? Humanizing the perceived audience shrinks the spotlight almost immediately. Step 3, voluntary exposure. This is the hardest one, but it is also the most powerful. The spotlight effect thrives on avoidance. Every time you shrink from a situation to avoid judgment, you send your brain a confirmation signal. The threat was real. The anxiety strengthens. The antidote is deliberate, progressive exposure, not reckless exposure, calculated. You do the thing that feels watched. You say the idea in the meeting. You post the work. You show up imperfectly on purpose, and then you observe what actually happens. Almost every time, nothing catastrophic occurs. And each time that happens, you collect real evidence that the audience was never as large or as critical as your brain insisted. We cannot talk about the spotlight effect without talking about what social media has done to it. Every platform is architecturally designed to quantify your social worth. Likes, views, follower counts, comment ratios. These numbers give your ancient social brain exactly what it was always craving, a precise, real-time score of your tribal standing. The result is that millions of people are now living under a spotlight that is not just imaginary. It has a metrics dashboard. You can check exactly how unnoticed you were. You can compare your number to someone else's. And your brain, wired for tribal survival, interprets low engagement as literal social rejection. This is why a dopamine reset matters here too. Not from all technology, but from the reflexive checking. The solution is not to leave the internet. It is to stop using external metrics as a substitute for internal self-worth. Because when the number becomes the measure of your value, you will spend your life optimizing for an audience that is already distracted. When you genuinely internalize that the spotlight is yours alone, not in a lonely way, but in an empowering way, something quiet but enormous shifts. You stop editing yourself before you speak. You stop rehearsing apologies for actions you have not taken. You stop building your life around an imaginary jury. You start making decisions based on what you actually want. You create things that matter to you, not things calibrated for maximum external approval. You say things that are true rather than things that are safe. You become, slowly, more yourself. And paradoxically, people notice. Not because you started performing better, but because you stopped performing altogether. Authenticity registers in a way that careful image management never does. The people worth connecting with are not drawn to your polished version. They are drawn to the signal underneath it. Here's what I want you to do this week. Pick one thing you have been holding back because of the imaginary audience. It can be small, a message you have been too afraid to send, an idea you have been afraid to say out loud, a piece of work you have been afraid to share. Do it, and then watch what happens. Not to get validation, to collect evidence. Evidence that the audience your brain invented was never as real as the life you have been postponing. You are not performing for a crowd. You never were. The stage was empty. It always has been. And now that you know that, you are free to build something real.